City Mission Guilders, one heart, one way, Nibabi. So, thank you for inviting me to speak to you about domestic violence. I do not know what you want to know about domestic violence, but I have asked that I share some of the information that we have gathered over years as researchers about what domestic violence is and what we can do when we are faced with domestic violence. So I live with my niece, and I asked that she asked me some questions that might be of interest to people of her age, because she's also the age of the guilders. So it's going to help me with the flow and just to remember also to cover some of the things that I think you would like to know. So I'm going to follow her leads.
Okay, our first question is define and break down domestic violence.
I'm not going to give you a textbook definition of domestic violence. I'm sure by now you already know that I teach. I've been introduced as such. So you can go to the textbook, and the textbook can tell you what domestic violence is. But what I'm going to tell you in this conversation is that if you are in a relationship where you feel that you are constantly not treated well, you are most probably in a violent relationship. So, domestic means that relationship could be husband-wife, girlfriend-boyfriend, mother-child, siblings. Anyone who lives in that domestic space is part of the definition of domestic violence. It is not only limited to people who are in a romantic relationship or to people who are married. It could even be people who are cohabiting, for example, who are living together, but they are not married, as long as you are living in that domestic space. So it's actually a legal definition of, are you living together in the same house? Yes, then it's domestic violence. But violence happens between partners even when they do not live together. And that is why we also talk about what I'm going to call intimate partner violence, which is one of the most common forms of violence that happens in relationships between people who are in an intimate relationship. There could be, again, married husband-wife, or there could be girlfriend-boyfriend, or there could be girlfriend-girlfriend or boyfriend-boyfriend. Intimate partner relationship, we call it. But broader than that, there's also generally, there is gender-based violence against women. And I think it's important that you always think about both intimate partner violence and domestic violence as located within the broader spectrum of the ways in which women are violated in our society. I know you are also saying, no, but men are also victims of violence sometimes. Yes, sometimes men are also victims of violence. But there is an element in which when we look at violence against women, we look at the reasons and the motivations behind that violence. And it becomes clear to us that it has a gendered nature. It is about what we call the gender power dynamics and the structure in a society that makes some people to look down upon women. And people who have particular attitudes towards women are likely to be the people who violate the women in their domestic space. For example, if your brother is the kind of a brother who says, Dimi Ndoda Apekaya, I'm the man here, that brother is the brother who's likely to violate their partner as well, because that brother has particular ideas about what a man is in a particular space. So that is what we talk about when we talk about domestic violence.
Okay, question number 2. Why has it increased during this time of lockdown and COVID-19?
Okay, so we are shooting this video on the 20th of May 2020 because it will stay there. It's very important for people to understand where this question comes from. So during this period in South Africa, we are in our lockdown period for COVID-19 pandemic, which means we are at home, we're not going to school, we are not going to work, we are not going to churches, we are not doing sports, we are not going to public spaces. So what it means is public life has been suspended. Guess what? We are all at home. Guess what? Men are at home with their wives. Men are at home with their sisters. Men are at home with their mothers. Men are at home with their partners who might be other men or who might be women. So in fact, men that I described earlier as having particular attitudes towards women are now at home. So because people are at home, there is an increased likelihood that if they are violent, then they will demonstrate that towards the people who are in their homes. And that is why it seems as if gender-based violence has increased during the lockdown. Gender-based violence has been there, but sometimes I'm going to use the word, it is outsourced to the public space. So gender-based violence is in our churches, we know it at City Mission. Gender-based violence is in our schools, we know teachers and students. Gender-based violence is in our colleges and universities, we know lecturers and students. Gender-based violence is in our workplaces, we know supervisors and supervisees. So gender-based violence is there, it's in the taxi ranks, it's there everywhere. But now, the perpetrators are locked inside their homes. They are now victimizing the people who are closest to them in their domestic sphere. That's why domestic violence might seem as if it has increased.
Okay, question number 3. How does a victim get out of the relationship besides getting out in a body bag?
That's a question that is often asked by people. And we ask this question because we feel sympathy for the victim, because we think nobody should be in a relationship where they are victimized. And we think that it should be easy for people to leave relationships where they are abused. In fact, it is not easy to leave an abusive relationship. Now, remember how earlier I spoke about what a domestic violence situation is. If you are in any relationship where you feel you are being mistreated, you are likely to be in a violent relationship. Now, here is the scenario. A person is in this relationship. They've been in this relationship, it doesn't matter for how long, but in this relationship, life is not always bad. Sometimes life is good, and they like the person that they are in a relationship with. But there are days when this person behaves really horrible towards them. And there are days that this person might even, raise a hand against, towards them. So that means that there are times when there's battering happening, there's physical abuse happening. There are times when it is again okay in this relationship, it is nice, and when it is okay, you make investments in this relationship. Whether these are emotional investments, whether these are financial investments, whether you have a child with this person, then you buy a house together with this person, you are in the same medical aid with this person. But during those times when it is okay, when it is nice, you sometimes imagine that things have changed. But because the person has particular attitudes towards women as a gender, as a group, that person is unlikely to change their attitude towards you, because you represent the gender that they think less of. So because you represent a gender that they think less of, then they become violent. Then we talk about what we call a cycle of violence. Then the cycle comes back. When it comes back, then the person that you are thinking about in mind, or yourself if you are in an abusive relationship, wants to go or wants out of the relationship. It's not easy because now they are thinking about the investments. Then we say, those of us who are outside the relationships, then we say, but you can always rebuild yourself. You can always, get yourself a house. You can always buy yourself a car. You can always, do this again. It's not easy as that, because they also have emotional investments to their partners. And that is why it is not easy for people to live. But eventually, we need everyone to imagine for themselves a life in a relationship where there is no abuse.
Okay, question number 4. As an affected person, what can one do about it? For example, if my sister is being abused physically.
Again, it's very difficult to know what you can do about abuse. One of the things that we should not do is not to be a bystander who does not do anything. So one of the things that we should not do is not to believe people when they say they are in an abusive relationship. When your friend, when your sister, when another gilder tells you at church, when you see, sometimes people don't say, but you see the blue eye. You see the change of plans. You plan together to go to church on a Friday. You come pick your friend up and they've changed their mind, but it is unclear how they've arrived at the change of mind. You probably are feeling that this person is being controlled. This person is in an abusive relationship. What is important is that you should state it to them that you are aware that what they are going through is not right. Let them know, that you see, and that you've heard. Even when you hear from somebody else, you know how we all don't like gossip. Gossip is not nice. We should not gossip. But there is one time when gossip is positive, when I tell you that something is happening to so and so, and that an intervention is needed. That, I think, is good gossip, because it's going to help that person to get an intervention or to get help, because not all of us feel confident to help sometimes. Some of us feel that, you know what, I might as well tell so and so, because so and so is closer to this person, and if I tell so and so will be able to make sense. Or maybe you know that you don't have good interpersonal skills, and so if it comes from you, your friend is not going to listen to you. Then you send someone that you know has better interpersonal skills. Or you know that, you know what, this person, now let's call this person a victim or a survivor, likes so and so and listens to so and so. So you send a message to that person. So what is important is you need to believe when a person says they are in a relationship that is abusive, or you need to not turn your eyes away when you see that it is happening. So what we mean by that is, don't be a bystander. Do something about it. So what can you do? Let them know that you know. Let them know that they can get out of the relationship because it's abusive. Support them in all the ways possible. If they need support with shelter, for example, some people who are in abusive relationships feel that, but we're renting this flat together here in Pretoria Central. What am I going to do? Say to the person, you can come stay with me for a while. So offer your friends that, you know what, I know you are going through this. I know you don't want to leave your relationship, but I know you need space, you need time to think. You can take your bag for a weekend, and you can come and stay with me for a while. That will give you time to think. I think that is very, very important, and it will make a lot of a difference to the person who is in an abusive relationship. If you are able to help and the person needs help financially, then you can help the person financially, because sometimes a person needs to be helped financially. Maybe they've got a child, the child goes to school, and if they leave the relationship, their partner is not going to pay school fees for the child, and you feel that, okay, before you get a job, I can help to pay school fees for your child whilst you are looking for a job. So it's important that you help in any way that you can.
Okay, question number 5. Where can the victim and the affected get help? Because life has to continue.
There are different, so there are what we call formal and informal sources of help. So what I've just described now is an informal source of help. And because most women in abusive relationships do not formally report their abuse, they usually tell their friends, they usually tell a colleague, maybe after a long while. If they've got a trusted colleague, they usually tell a relative, a cousin, when they trust that person. They rarely report to the social workers or to the police. What we hear as statistics of abused women is a tip of the iceberg. Many women who are in abusive relationships do not report. However, social workers can help. Social workers can help with counseling. They can help arrange family mediation if that is what is needed. But they can also help with a shelter if the woman needs a shelter. They can also help take the person in a process of opening a case if the person needs to open a case. Remember, violence is a crime at the end of the day. So if your partner beats you, you can open a case. We know that many women do not do that because that's not what they want. They do not want to see their partners in jail. When a woman finally makes a decision to report their partner to the police, usually it is because they've had enough. They've been through this relationship violence for a very long time, and they resort to the police. It is rare that people call the police for the first time violence happens in their lives. Sometimes they think that they can handle it themselves. Once they can't handle it themselves, they think that their friend is going to help them. Once the friend can't, they think the family member is going to help. Once the family member cannot help, they think an NGO that is local, that they know is going to help. So it's very important that you can call the National Command Center hotline. You can call the local NGO, but also you can go straight to the police and call the police. You can call the police. They should come and help. It is not always possible that they reach out because sometimes they don't have the resources to attend to all the cases that we call them for, so they say. But it's very important that you call. It's important that we report to the police, because if we do not report to the police, then the government does not know the magnitude of violence against women, which is why now during lockdown, the government thinks that domestic violence has increased, because for the first time they are faced now with all the women who are calling the National Command Center. Guess what? Those women have been calling their friends, but now they can't see their friends. Those women have found strategies to cope with violence by going to work, but now they can't go to work. Those women had their own strategies to go and drink, but now they can't go and drink. They go to church, they can't go to church. So now they can't use public life anymore to hide, because they used to hide behind their public life. Now, because they can't hide behind their public life, most NGOs in our communities are also closed. People are working from home, remote working. Now they are calling the National Command Center. And guess what? The Minister of Police thinks that domestic violence has increased. It has not. It's the reality. In fact, even what is happening now is still not the extent to which we know women experience violence.
Okay, my last question is, do you think substance abuse contributes to domestic violence?
Substance abuse contributes to many social ills, including domestic violence. Now, I like the way you ask it, because you says contributes. So, substance abuse is not the cause of domestic violence, but it contributes in many ways. One, when people are under the influence and something happens, everything to them is a threat, and they feel that they want to defend themselves. And so they want to defend themselves against their partners, because they think this partner is not listening to me, and this partner not listening to me undermines me. And remember, they are drunk. They don't have time to have other explanations for the conversation that is happening. Then they are very quick to resort to domestic violence when they've been drinking. So substance abuse, it does. Substance abuse, drinking, drug use, it changes the way you think and the way you see things. You know, if a person steps on your foot and you are sober, you are able to say, sorry, Anati, you just stepped on my foot. Please remove your foot. And guess what? If we are both sober, she says sorry, and that sorry means a lot. But when I'm drunk or we both drunk, I even don't pay attention to the sorry. Even I don't hear the sorry. Even I don't think the sorry is sincere. Even I make a big deal out of the sorry, and then we end up fighting because we had been drinking or because I was drunk. So alcohol contributes a lot to substance abuse. So what we need is to change the ways in which we deal with each other as men and women, as men and men, and as women and women. That is why we've got such a big problem with violence amongst men, for example, when they have been drinking. It's because substance abuse diminishes your ability to think clearly about what you want to do, about what you perceive to be a threat in your life. All right, thank you. Happy to take questions.